Welcome back to Candid Cloud Convos.
We are your hosts, Gina and Emelita.
Today we have a special guest because we don't know everything about suicide awareness or how to help, so we brought someone who knows a little more than we do.
Hi everybody, my name is Tanya and I'm actually Emelita's mama. So I just graduated what is called the SPIRIT course, which stands for Service Provider Individualized Recovery Intensive Training. So obviously I'm not a doctor, I don't have all the answers, but I am here to help kind of shed the light on some facts and myths and just have a little discussion, a little powwow. And I really like the fact that we're doing this on Wednesday because for me, Wednesdays are always considered Wellness Wednesday.
Perfect timing.
I know.
We didn't even know that. And the reason why we're doing this episode too is because this month of September is Suicide Awareness Month.
We wanted to make sure that you guys had enough time during this month to kind of reflect on the episode and ask any questions. We'll leave some resources in the description as well. So if you need any outsourced resources, they are there.
Exactly. And I think you'll be able to put those somewhere in there for people to be able to reach out and be able to share the links for them. And I have a phone number that they can actually text to at the end also. That's nationwide. So that's something that I think pretty much everybody probably has a phone. And if they can't get to a computer, they can at least text for help. So I was
probably easier too. It's probably easier for people to text too because some people aren't as comfortable talking about it as well.
True. There's a question that people seem to ask a lot about the gender difference and the suicide rate between males and females, what the difference is. I can tell you that 78% of suicides are male and 22% are females. Males are 3.6 times more likely to die by suicide. Females are 3 times more have suicide attempts.
Wow.
Don't really know the exact reason why male to female, but it is proven that women do have a higher depression rates. I did find something, and I'm just going to say what Google said because I was searching long and hard to kind of find that answer as to, why male opposed to female. And all I could find was male gender roles tend to emphasize greater levels of strength, independence, risk-taking behaviors, their economic status, and individualism. I couldn't really find anything specific as to why, and I don't know if we'll ever know why.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Like, I wonder if it's because men or males just maybe don't feel as comfortable speaking about their feelings. Like if it doesn't fit that like gender role, like you were saying. So they just keep it in and until they can't. I don't know. That's kind of what I was thinking though too.
Yeah, that could very well be
be
possible. I did want to go over the most used suicide methods. Firearms, 50% of total suicides. Suffocating or hanging, 29%. Poisoning, 13%. Cutting, 2%. And drowning, 1%. There's a 5% in there that had a question mark. So I don't know if that's just because there's other things we don't really know about or that aren't as common. So that's where the other 5% lies, I'm assuming, because it didn't have the whole 100% when it broke it down.
I wonder if poisoning, that percentage also is that, the same as like ODing, and would that be considered in the same category?
I mean, I would say so from drugs. Yeah, I would say that would definitely, you're poisoning your, yeah, I would say, I would throw that in there. If it was me, I would throw that in there, honestly.
Because that wasn't an option or in the percentage.
Also, there's a bunch of facts that I didn't even know about until I took that class. Suicide facts as opposed to myths. So I was just going to kind of throw some of those out there. So suicide facts. If people in a crisis get the help they need, they will probably never be suicidal again. Number 2, asking someone directly about suicidal intent lowers anxiety, opens communication. Let me say that again. Communication is key, opens the lines of communication, and lowers the risk of an impulsive act. Number 3, suicide prevention is everybody's business, and anyone can help prevent the tragedy of suicide. Most suicidal people communicate their intent sometime during the week of preceding their attempt. People who talk about suicide may try or even complete an act of self-destruction. Most people who survive a suicide attempt do not go on to die by suicide. Suicide is the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action may save a life. Those are all facts. Now I have a few myths that people may not know. Suicide myths. Asking or talking about suicide will give someone the idea to do it. That's a myth. People who attempt suicide want to die. There is nothing you can do. Not true. Males have the highest rate of suicidal behavior. You should ignore people who threaten or attempt suicide for attention. Suicide usually occurs without warning. So those were the facts and the myths that we learned about.
I wish you could see our faces with some of those myths. It's like, those are insane.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Ridiculous
Really.
that people would even think that. So you just stay quiet in hopes of what?
Exactly. And another thing too we learned about is words. The words we use can be helpful or harmful. Like when we say, in order to reduce the stigma, we should be saying, and I didn't even know this, we should be saying die by suicide, not committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because someone who doesn't need help wouldn't quote unquote threaten suicide. We don't threaten suicide, we share suicidal thoughts. And when we say someone committed suicide, that's in turn, again, with the stigma, making it look like they committed a crime or they're a criminal. And they did not commit a crime and they're not a criminal,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about ending their life. So we have to.
Right. That makes sense.
I never even thought of that.
I didn't either, but it makes sense.
It does.
It really does. I mean, so death by suicide or die by suicide, not commit suicide.
Mhm.
Completed suicide versus the word successful suicide. And then we have suicide loss survivors and suicide attempt survivors. And those are kind of the words that we use so that we don't, so we can end the stigma.
Right. Be more respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you were saying that like anyone can help someone that's suicidal or that's having suicidal thoughts. And at work today, one of the children actually brought a book that the title was just Kind. And the entire book was just about how you can be kind to someone else. And it can start with a smile. It can start with, if you see someone that's in trouble, you can help them, or just these little things. And like, embracing and accepting the differences. Like, it's fun when we all do the same thing, and it's fun when we do things differently. And it was just really cool. It tied in really perfect to our topic today. And it's just be kind.
Yeah, it's just so much easier to be kind.
Yeah. And it's just be kind. Being kind can help someone who's having a hard time, and just a random act of kindness can make a huge difference for someone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, even just saying hi to somebody or how are you, that can change their whole outlook on whatever they're going through that day. Just that somebody took the time to acknowledge them.
Yeah,
care about
exactly.
Someone seeing them.
Or just hello.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone has like a good support system.
Right.
Some people, they live where they don't even have family
Right.
or friends or anything, or maybe they just moved somewhere and they're already, not in the greatest mental place,
I watched a video where this man who attempted suicide said that walking across the bridge, and he said in his head, if just one person smiles at me, I'm not going to do it. He was just like kind of using that as his reasoning, and no one did, because I think everyone's just so used to, kind of keeping to themselves, minding their own business. So no one did. And he attempted it, survived, and, lives to tell his story, which he does. And now he's like a motivational speaker. But it's just that, coming from someone that did attempt it, saying like he just wanted one person to smile at him, and that would have changed his whole, like he wouldn't have done it,
Mm-hmm.
So it's the smallest little thing.
Right. It would have changed the course of his life.
Yeah.
Then there's also like warning signs we can kind of listen and look for also. So warning signs, which basically would be considered red flags, would be like specific behavioral or emotional clues that may indicate suicidal intent. Risk factors are conditions or circumstances which may elevate a person's risk for suicide. Protective factors, which would be conditions or circumstances which may reduce a person's risk for suicide. As far as warning signs, direct warning signs would be if somebody said, I wish I were dead, I'm going to kill myself. Indirect would be people would be better off without me. You won't have to worry about me any longer. I feel like there's no way out. I just can't take it anymore. Or even thoughts, which are nonverbal, would be expressed in writing, drawing, and lo and behold, social media. There's so much bullying and so many things on social media that can trigger those thoughts. And I swear it seems to be like it's getting to the younger age, younger and younger.
So sad.
Right. And when as far as the warning signs also, you want to look out, keep an eye on, like for me, I can say from personal experience, especially during the pandemic, when especially even the elementary and middle-aged school kids, I had to be careful because there was a lot of like depression going on in our house and stuff. And so I had to be very mindful because I have a son who was starting to really isolate and just be withdrawn. And so I got a little, I got a little worried. So things to look for when that's happening too, or even if that's not happening, but if you happen to hear these verbal, indirect or non-direct words or actions by anyone, ways that you could look for more red flags would be somebody who just out of the blue purchases a gun, or hoarding on stockpiling pills, like we were talking about, poison or pills, or researching methods online. People who feel hopeless, desperate, and trapped.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing too that people don't realize. They don't want to end their life. They want to end the pain. And that's a huge, huge thing that we learned too. It's like, they don't really want to die. They just want whatever they're going through at that time, somebody to help them find the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I mean, you think about it, it's like, God, who would really want to end their life? When there's help and they can get out of that situation, and it could be a lot less burdensome that they are feeling at that moment if they can reach out and get help, or just have somebody listen to them. And there's people who also who quote unquote threatening suicide, which is another stigma type of thing that we try not to use. They're not threatening suicide. They're reaching out. They're asking for help when they're talking about these things. So we have to be really mindful about that and really pay attention to that and know that it's a serious thing. Not like, oh, here they go again. I'm going to kill myself if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself, blah, 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 100 times. Well, that 101st time might be the time they do it, because nobody listened to them. They were reaching out. They weren't threatening. They were reaching out. They don't want to die. They want whatever pain they're going through to die. To end. They want the pain to die.
Right.
Whatever situation they're in. So I think that's really, really important. Not thinking that people just want to end their life just to end their life. They just want to end the pain. And we just have to be one that advocate for them if we have to talk to them, like the communication first and foremost. That's key.
Right.
And I know, Gina, you had asked me like, what is the right time to talk to somebody, or what is the right age? I was thinking about that, and I didn't have like hardcore like answers, but I don't think there's really a right time or right age. I would say like observing, for instance, like during the pandemic, when the kids are being more withdrawn and feel like in a darker place and they're being more quiet, or they're drawing crazy things, or, listening to music they don't normally listen to. I think that's the time. I mean, even as young as however, 5 years old, whatever, I think that would be the opportunity, not to scare them in a sense, and like say, are you thinking about harming yourself, blah, blah, blah. But I think to have the lines of communication open about, when things get hard, or if you feel sad or depressed, what would you do if you're feeling sad and depressed, and how can I help you? Stuff like that. Just communication.
Right. And I like that too, because it just makes you be more aware and conscious of like how whoever it is, whether it's your friend, child, sibling, just anyone, any loved one or someone around you, is like, just be conscious of how they're acting. If they're acting different, ask about it. Sometimes we kind of like, if you're going through your own things, you kind of just bypass someone else's, but it's being aware of if someone's changing or acting different and doing something about it and responding in the way that you should.
And I think for kids too, especially, maybe putting it in a way that's, if a friend was feeling sad, what would you do? What would you say? How would you help them? Because then it doesn't put like the spotlight on them if they're not open or wanting to be vulnerable. It's like, okay, well, how would you help them so I can help you the same way?
Exactly. Perfect. That is absolutely perfect. That would be the perfect way to start, Exactly. Like another perfect example, I keep using the pandemic because that was just a really dark time.
Relatable to anyone listening.
Everybody, yeah.
Exactly. Everybody's listening. I'm sure they can relate in some sense. But let's just say, okay, a child who is diehard into sports, always playing on the basketball hoop, always skateboarding, always whatever. And then all of a sudden they stop. And one day you're like, hey, how come you're not out there playing anymore? That can open the lines of communication too, because that's when they obviously become withdrawn, or they have issues going on that they don't know how to address, especially to like a parent. I mean, sometimes they may feel embarrassed, or maybe depending on their upbringing or their home life, they could feel ridiculed, or they could be living in an environment where that's all they know, because that's all they've seen, because their parent or sibling or whatever has reverted to, instead of being so active or a social butterfly, to not being that way, and they could just be like a sponge. Kids are like sponges. They absorb everything from a certain age to a certain age. And maybe they think oh, well, if my sister's not happy, maybe I'm not supposed to be happy. And then they kind of go into the dark cloud. So there's just, and that brings up more additional warning signs.
Right.
Sudden mood changes, no sense of purpose, changes in sleep patterns, somebody who's putting their affairs in order all of a sudden, controlled anger, anxiety or agitation, withdrawn, which we talked about, increased drug or alcohol use, people who are all of a sudden giving away their possessions, or they're all of a sudden, doing random acts of reckless behavior. A huge one would be if there was a previous suicide attempt at one point. That's another huge risk factor. They're kind of more at risk. Put them higher on the risk table or whatever you want to call it. History of current mental health problems, especially acute depression or anxiety. Substance abuse disorders or significant changes in substance abuse.
Right.
Recent release from inpatient setting. People who have been incarcerated who are now out into this world. If they've been gone a long time, it's like overwhelming to them. They can't even go to the grocery store or to go order food at a fast food place. I got this for my cousin who just served 25 years. And he said it freaked him out because he was finally out and free. Right. And someone took him to get something to eat. And he stood at the menu and just wanted to cry because there were so many things to choose from. And there were so many people waiting that he felt
overwhelming,
just felt weird. And so what he did was he became a mentor to another inmate who was released not long ago. And he did the complete opposite, because he kind of knew what the pattern would be and knew what that person was probably going to go through. And he experienced it. Yeah. So he told them when they got there and there was a long line wherever they were.
Yeah.
And he said, look, he goes, don't worry about all these people. You take your time, you get whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. So it made him feel more, relaxed and comfortable. It's just those little things that are actually big things. We don't think about stuff like that.
What to recognize.
People in the military, PTSD or whatever, and they go to a grocery store. They're used to eating, one or two kinds of soups or whatever that's served to them. And here's a freaking shelf full of 50 soups to choose from. Right. I mean, that can just play tricks on the mind too and cause anxiety and depression and making you feel like what's wrong with me kind of thing.
Right.
Let's see, major physical illnesses, especially with chronic pain. That's a huge one. People, like I said, they don't want to die. They just want to end the pain or whatever they're going through. And there's some people with some pretty, like cancer, those people, they just want to end the pain, and central nervous system disorders, including traumatic brain injury, impulsive and or aggressive tendencies, history of trauma or abuse, for sure, and family history of suicide. Yeah. Then there are social and environmental risk factors, chaotic family history, divorce, change in living situation, incarceration, lack of social support and isolation, access to highly lethal means, legal difficulties, people who are going through it with court stuff. They think there's no way out and I might as well just say goodbye now to get out of this. Oh, this is a good one. Barriers to accessing health and behavioral health care, which is what we're trying to improve greatly now, especially now, to have more accessibility for that so that everybody is able to get help, whether you are homeless or you live in a mansion. Same stuff should be offered to everyone, and unfortunately that doesn't happen all the time. Easily accessible to everyone, the same services. Right.
It should be easily accessible to anybody.
Exactly.
The same way that we go to the doctor for a physical every year. Why don't we get mental health checks, or why is mental health not prioritized?
That's a good.
And even then, it's like if you with insurance or without insurance, you have to pay however so and so, but it should just be accessible, free.
Exactly.
It would help because suicide starts with your mental health, and they're just making it very hard for people to even try to reach out, or if they do, they get denied. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially mental health. And I like what you said, Emily. That should be like a law. Mental health should be absolutely completely free at least for an evaluation.
Right.
The evaluation should at least be free, especially starting from adolescence on.
It should. Right. Especially because your mental health has such a role in your physical health as well, that it's like a direct, lead to it. So if you have anxiety and you feel physical pains, or you have depression and, those things come up, you should be able to go and get those things checked out the same way you would a broken arm or leg or whatever. And it should be taken seriously, not just, oh, it's in your head, then it's not real. It's not how it should be, especially with a doctor that you're supposed to trust.
Exactly. There's some protective factors. We might have already covered some of these just talking, but effective clinical care for mental, physical, and substance use disorders. easy access to a variety of clinical interventions, ongoing medical care and mental health care relationships, support for help seeking. Like people sometimes don't know where to turn. Like, where do I go to get this help? I don't even know where to start. You know, maybe my stuff's not as important. Well, yeah, it is. And we just need to lead them by the hand as an advocate, which is what I'm striving to do, lead them from A to Z. You know, even for like a homeless person, like where they can at least start by getting new clothes, taking a shower, getting free food, having some shelter, you know, getting medical attention. I mean, we just have to lead them by the hand. Some of them truly don't know. And there actually is, thank God, a little more resources now than there was years ago, but people don't know where to
start, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another reason why, like, the links that you'll put up will help people with stuff like that. And in every county, well, in California, I don't know about everywhere, but in California, I know every county has specific stuff for specific things like that. You know, where they can reach forward specifically for this, specifically for homeless, specifically for seniors, you know, where there's no bunch of red tape having to go through, where, you know, you want to get help, contact this number or go on this website, or you see this professional and they'll help you if they're really passionate about what they're doing, which they should be. Money, whether the person has money or not, everybody is entitled to the same care and the same love and compassion. You know, somebody who's rich shouldn't get more attention and compassion and love than someone who's been living on the streets or a heroin addict or whatever. We can help those people from that point. The homelessness may be why they're thinking suicidal thoughts. You know, the drugs could be, and again, I can attest from personal experience that yes, I contemplated and thought about suicide quite often when I was deep in my addiction. And also from PTSD, just from like where they were talking about a traumatic incident happening. I didn't know at that time, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, that I wanted that pain to end and that situation to end. And because it was such an ongoing thing for so long, I didn't think it ever would. So of course, at that moment, I had contemplated, you know, praise God, I didn't do it, didn't, you know, succeed.
Praise God.
Right. But you walked that journey and now you get to talk and help people.
Exactly. You know, I get to share and let other people know that there is help. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. They're not alone. So many people think they're so alone, you know, that no one's going to listen to them, or they're going to think that they're just crazy, you know, especially people who have mental illness. And that's a lot of where it's another thing that just popped in my head. We lost my favorite uncle in the whole wide world, who was my godfather and uncle. He worked for PG&E his whole life. And he was the one who brought home the bacon or whatever, like really old school. And he ended up having a heart attack and had to end up retiring from his job with PG&E of, I believe, like 40 years, I want to say. Once he had to retire early from that, it caused him to go into a very deep depression. And in turn, they gave him, this is almost 20 years ago, in turn, they put him on Prozac. And that's another thing too, that I don't know about now in this moment, but back then I heard so many things about Prozac. Mostly, you know, pros and cons, mostly cons. Doctors were just like prescribing Prozac for depression and anxiety and stuff without really digging into their history or even communicating with them as to what get to the root of the issue.
Always medication like Candid.
Exactly. And that particular medication, unfortunately, he ended up completed suicide. He hung himself. There was one point in time where he was in such a dark depression that we did not know where he was for almost 48 hours. He disappeared and we had no idea where he was. He got lost. He came back. He was beat up, had scratches everywhere, didn't know what happened. And then not long after that. And the crazy thing is, none of us would have ever known. He just, in front of everybody, he just played it like his normal self. And lo and behold, this whole time he had been planning it for a while with the shrine and everything up in the rafters of the garage. And he completed suicide, you know, died by suicide. And if just some doctor would have just communicated more or did more research as to just throwing out the Prozac because of depression, I would like to think that he'd still be here. But stuff like I said, stuff like that is even with medication, it could cause the reverse effect. Instead of helping, it could be harmful because they just give out whatever and this dose of whatever without, you know, starting it with baby steps or doing more of an in-depth evaluation and, you know, testing the waters a little bit and communicating and meeting with them more.
Right. Follow up. I was just going to say that, you know, they prescribe you the meds. They're like, okay, try this for 3 months and then tell us what happens. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, like it's a cure-all, and you know, and there are the side effects. They do show in the little print there that even that medication could be harmful, or you can get suicidal thoughts, blah 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 blah. But I just think, I don't know, compassion and communication to me is key.
Right. And I like how you said
Right.
compassion and communication. And I feel like maybe something we can also add to that is like comprehension. Because at the same time, you can communicate something to somebody, and if they're not comprehending or taking you seriously, it's in one ear and out the other.
Right.
But if they're really sitting there and trying to comprehend what you're telling them, then that would make like such a huge difference.
And like you mentioned, it happened, 20 years ago where mental health definitely wasn't talked about as much, especially with the older generation. So I'm hopeful that it gets better.
Not just brush something aside if somebody's acting oddly,
Exactly.
like why was he going up in the garage? Why was he in the garage for all by himself all the time, for so long? And what was he doing in there? Nobody ever checked.
Right.
As far as I know, nobody ever checked on that. And that could have maybe helped, that could have maybe put him on a better path. What might keep people from talking to others? I think this is what I meant. We talked a little bit about this, about their feelings of suicide, uncertain of reaction or overreaction from people. Previous conversations might have been ignored or avoided at one point. They're too embarrassed to let others know. They're uncertain about accepting help from others. Like some people are just too prideful. Like, someone else needs the help more than I do, or no, I can't ask for help. That's one of the first red flags is when within oneself, when you start thinking that you have to go through something alone, or you're too embarrassed to talk about it, or you're usually the giver instead of the receiver. It's okay to be the receiver, especially in times like stuff like this. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay. There's nothing wrong.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, there's no shame in asking for help. Differences in cultural norms regarding from whom to seek help and from whom to accept help from. Right. Fear of being punished in some way. Let's just say like a teenager maybe. They talk about it. Okay, then you're not leaving the house. You're going to be on restriction. You're not going to talk. You're play your game. So punishment. That is like not
punishment.
Sorry to say, that is not going to help the matter. That is just going to make it 10 times worse. And
it's just going to make it worse. Yeah. Like, why did I even say anything then?
Yeah, make them go darker.
Right.
Exactly. And then they're never going to want to talk. That's why I've always tried to tell my kids from little, I don't care what it is, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever it is. There is nothing you can tell me or ask me or want to know about that I would be like, oh my God, no, anything and everything is on the table. There's nothing, anything goes, and I think every that way, every teacher, every parent, every doctor, whatever, to, instill that in their kids. And unfortunately, sometimes they still, they don't always they might think, okay, yeah, she said that, but can I really tell her about this? Oh my God, this is so horrible. She's going to look at me different, blah, blah, blah. I hate that people think that way because maybe I'm just different and because I've been through so much too. And I don't want people to feel that way. Mm-hmm. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be scared to talk about it, but you got to talk about it, and I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of books, even like I said, to start from adolescence. There's got to be some kind of books online for parents and stuff to know, to talk to their kids about stuff like that. Especially this day and age, and too, like the pandemic, like we were talking about, how there was, and that kind of bothers me that they don't show the rates past 2019 anywhere.
Yeah.
I haven't found them anywhere.
I was looking it up
I'm wondering
too.
why, because I'm wondering because I'm telling you, 2020, I know for a fact that the rates were higher.
Skyrocketed.
And I would
probably.
really love to find
Probably a
that somewhere,
shocking
even
number.
Probably. And even all the more reason to more medical attention and more communication and stuff, to be more awareness.
This is exactly what we're doing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dig in and ask my professor about that one, because even we didn't talk past 2019. So I don't know why that is, but I'd really love to find out. And then like from between 2020 and 2020, I wonder what's changed, or from 2019 to now. I'm sure it's dropped by now between then. Okay, well, why? I want to know why and how, so that we can be made aware, so that we can help. We need to know so we can help everybody else.
Right.
I would really love to
advocate for others.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna look into that. Sweet. To be continued.
Maybe we can even do a part 2. If people have questions, they can send in their questions and we can do a part
that'd be great.
2.
That'd be awesome. Fear of being hospitalized. People are thinking, oh, well, if I do this, and if it's not successful, I'm going to go into a psych ward, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you probably are. Again, experience from another child. You know, we did have to do that, and it was the best thing for her.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing for her, best thing for us.
And she'll say that too.
Compassion and communication.
Yeah.
To talk about it. She would be a great guest to have on the next time, as a matter of fact, as somebody who's, you know,
Yeah.
and she's also spreading awareness now, and she's all about it. So the more people we can get like that to let other people know that they're not alone,
Right.
man,
That stigma would go away of being embarrassed or
Exactly.
a burden or whatever.
Exactly. A lot of people don't want to appear weak in the eyes of other people,
Mhm.
you know, so they don't talk about it. Oh boy. So when we were talking about how to talk to somebody about suicide, it does say that when you're in doubt, don't wait, ask the question.
Yeah, like
Because
better
that could
safe
be the
than
one question that
sorry.
could save- Exactly. And if it's not that, okay, but let's get to the root of what is going on.
Right.
If that's off the table,
Right. Because
praise God. If
they
that's off
already
the table.
said that asking the question won't make them all of a sudden want to
Right.
do it. All it does is help prevent.
Exactly. And we
Right.
talked about that, about the facts and the myth. That's a myth that well, exactly.
Yeah. And I think someone would appreciate, you knowing them
Reaching
enough
out.
or caring enough to reach out to say, hey, are you okay?
Exactly.
Like, what's going on? I just want to make sure you're okay. Or if there's anything I can do, even if they're not having suicidal thoughts, they're just
Exactly.
going through something, being there for people that you love or people you don't even
Yeah.
know. It's easy to just, like we said, ask someone how their day's going, and that may
A
change
kind
their
word,
life.
a smile, whatever can change. You might have just saved that person's life. You don't even know. That also, when you
Yeah.
are talking to somebody or anyone about it, give yourself plenty of time. Don't make it a rush thing, because you don't want to, sit somebody down and be like,
Be
okay, well, I gotta
kind.
be, no. That should
Yeah.
be undivided
Undivided
attention and time.
attention.
and energy should be with that person then and there. Be direct and mention the warning signs you may have seen. Like, I've noticed that you've mentioned feeling hopeless a lot lately, or haven't been interested in seeing your grandchildren recently, or going out of the house much at all.
Mhm.
Are you thinking about suicide?
Yeah.
Have to be kind of direct sometimes. Got to beat around the bush. They're not going to come out and say it. And if you're
You'll
not
get
direct
to
about it,
the
how else
point,
is it gonna
kind of.
be,
If
acknowledged?
yeah.
And I get that a lot of people are probably scared to hear the answer to that, but it's got to happen.
Because then it's like, then what? Now what do I
Exactly.
do?
And you want to make sure you talk to the person, obviously, alone in a private setting. You don't want to have a group of people sitting here and the family sitting here when you're talking about that stuff. It needs to be one-on-one private. And then you can get
Right.
more, they'd probably be more comfortable, less overwhelmed, and more inclined to actually
Yeah.
talk, actually talk it out. Another thing, don't interrupt them. Whether you agree or disagree, whatever, you're not in their shoes. You need to make sure that you listen with both ears and let the person speak freely without interruption or without ridiculing or without, how can you say that? Blah, 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 blah. No. Just let them know that you care and you want to help. Like, I'm worried about you and I want you to know that help is available to get you through this, and I will help you do that. Before you have the conversation, make sure you have the resources handy, because if any time goes by, it may just be like, well, I had the talk, I don't need any more help, or the person might forget to give them that help when they really were considering, well, maybe I'll text that number afterwards. Oh, well, they didn't give me the number. Oh, well, now what? I guess it didn't matter as much as, I thought it did, or whatever it may be.
I was also going to mention that you don't know how much time you really have before this person plans to, attempt.
Right.
So you don't know it, how long you even have. So you kind of have to work quickly or, think quickly about what you're going to do to help them.
Right. Not like just throw
Exactly.
it off to be like, oh, I'll send it tomorrow. Or
Then you need to believe yourself. You need to believe, as well as you're telling the other person, that there is, capacity for change, that we can change this. We can get you help, and we can change your way of thinking. We can change you feeling this way, whatever it takes. Be direct, but kind and compassionate, obviously. And like I said it before earlier too, remember that suicide is not the problem, only the solution to a perceived insoluble problem. Let the person know that they're safe while you're talking, that they're in a completely safe space. Say whatever. Again, it just keeps, making sure that you have resources on hand.
Yeah.
Staying calm, express as much empathy and offer hope in any form that you can. You want to avoid statements and questions like this. You're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? You wouldn't do anything stupid, would you? Suicide is a dumb idea. Surely you're not thinking about suicide. How could you?
It's so insensitive.
Yeah. Then we have like even developing a safety plan. Ask the person if they have a plan and access to lethal means. Like, do you have the weapon or medications that you could use to hurt yourself? If so, then, let's hand them over and take that away. Ask the person how they can stay safe until they get help. I mean, if you're not one-on-one with them, maybe they're calling you on the phone, they're reaching out. Is there someone you can call if you think you may act on your thoughts of suicide? Will you promise me that you will not drink, or at least have someone monitor your drinking until we can get you help if they're an alcoholic? Can I hold your firearm for a while until you're in a safer, better place? Just all about the words too.
Right. It's not what you say, but how you say it.
Also, speaking of, while we're talking about that, there also is, I have the book and the app. During class, we learned about this, and it helps so much with anyone, not just suicide, but anyone with mental stuff, depression, anxiety, whatever it may be. It's called WRAP, WRAP, and it's a free app on your phone. And I said, I have the book as well. We had to do that whole book. WRAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And it starts from even pre-crisis mode, during crisis, and post-crisis. And there's things in there that we had to, or that you can, like you get to be in charge of your crisis plan. We all know that sometimes we may have some people that we'd rather not step in when something's going wrong, because they may not know how to deal with it or how to talk.
I was going to say that maybe you could put someone who you do feel safe talking with, like someone who would be your go-to
Exactly.
person.
Well, there is on the app and in the book, there is an actual chart, and you could list the people. This is who I want to be contacted if I'm in crisis mode. This is who is not to be contacted if I'm in crisis mode. And you get to be in charge of your wellness recovery action plan, your crisis plan. And it's a really, really, really important and amazing tool to have. I think everybody should. I think everyone.
That's awesome. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Me neither.
And just let your point of contact person know where that is, and or maybe take a picture, have their own copy of it, so that they know. Because sometimes when we go into crisis, hence the word, things get kind of crazy and chaotic, and it's like what to do, who to call, blah, blah, blah. Nope. You got to take a minute, find that action plan, because if you turn this person to the wrong person for help,
that could easily be the deciding factor.
The tipping point.
It will deter them. Exactly. Suicidal people often believe they cannot be helped, so you may have to do more than you even know, or you may have. And if you don't, and it's okay to say if you don't know, and they're asking you stuff like, I don't know, but let's find out together, or let's find out right now. We together we will. I'm on this journey with you. Let's find this out together, so that you're not alone.
Like I'm not going to leave you. We'll figure it out.
Exactly. The best referral involves taking the person directly to someone who can help them, if that's who they choose to be comfortable with agreeing to get the help from. The next best referral is getting a commitment from them to accept the help, then making the arrangements to get that help. So that is one thing when you talk to somebody too, is getting them to commit that, yes, they're willing to accept the help, and that, that's the green light to go to where you can, kind of take it from there step by step, and helping make the arrangements for that to happen. The third best referral is to give referral information and try to get a good faith commitment not to complete or attempt suicide. Any willingness to accept help at some time, even in the future, is a good outcome. That part I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm not really sure about that one. I mean, they might, getting a good faith statement for them if they're not going to do something. Sometimes people will just say it just to get out of that moment, to just appease the person.
Right. Avoid it.
Finish the conversation.
Finish the conversation, be done with it.
So that kind of part, I'm about the wording about that part. I'm still, it's in the notes and stuff, but that to me would be a little, I don't know, I guess depending on who you're dealing with.
How do you go about if they're refusing help? If they've opened up about it, but they're just, refusing any kind of help.
If they've opened up about it and they've confessed, I guess I'll use the word confess, that they have had those thoughts, or they, if they're having those thoughts now, there are like, I don't know about everywhere, but I know actually in my county, actually, there's like a mobile crisis response team where any family member or any friend, anybody can call and they'll come to you and, you know, talk to the person in, you know, who's in need of help and stuff. Or, I mean, if it's that bad and you know it's that bad, you know that they are probably not in a good state, then we have the, you know, the 5150 AKA Baker Act. It's awful having to do that to somebody. It truly, truly is. But if it's going to save their life, we don't care about how they're feeling about us in particular at that time. Go ahead. They also have to admit, because you can't just do that if you're thinking they are, you have to actually have that verbal confirmation. So that's kind of like a sticky situation. If they're refusing to get help, I mean, depending if you're talking about teenagers or kids or teenagers, well, as the parent and their legal guardian and their protector, I would say they don't have any say in it. We're going to go to see a doctor right now, you know, whatever. Call the doctor, ask to see, you know, psychiatrist right away, or even, I don't know, maybe honestly, I don't have the answer for that. It just depends on the individual, I would suppose, and how old they are. Do they live with you? You know, do you have control? If they're over 18, there's really nothing you can do to like force them to do anything. But as far as the younger ages, I think there's a little more we can do, as far as being more forceful.
Yeah.
I seen on social media today that in 2022, by July 16th, that there's going to be a direct 988 number. Instead of calling 911, you call a 988 number, and it will directly link you to someone in the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So they said by July 16th, 2022, that will be national. So I seen that today.
That is awesome. I like that.
I just looked up, like, what if someone's refusing, like what you can say. It says if they're refusing suggestion of professional help, if they're not in any immediate danger, that they're not presently about to start harming themselves, then try to be patient and don't push it too hard. One of the phrases that they put was, "It's okay that it doesn't sound like you're ready yet. I really hope you'll think about it and just let me know if you change your mind. I can help connect you with someone." Or, "I know you're going through a lot. I really believe it can make a big difference for your life and your health. Just consider it for later. And know I'm here to help."
Exactly. And knowing that you're not going in there, that you're there for the long haul to help them however.
Yeah. So I guess just kind of giving that extra support, but respecting them.
So communication again.
Yeah. And the comprehension.
I'm glad you mentioned that thing about 2022 when they were going to have that. But you can nationwide text the word TALK, TALK, to 741-741, and that's nationwide for people to talk like immediately. That'd be maybe another great thing to do too. Now that you were asking Regina, what if they don't accept the help? Maybe while you're sitting there having that discussion, so that they don't feel like, okay, I'm going to drag you to this therapist now, I'm going to drag you to a psych ward or whatever. Maybe you could say, you know what? I have this number that we could text together while we're sitting here, just to talk to. You don't even have to talk to them verbally. If you feel more comfortable typing, talking on the phone, texting on the phone, because a lot of people do. They hate talking on the phone, especially younger ones. Maybe you could sit there and say, you know what? I have a number. Take us 30 seconds to text this number. I can help right now to see what the next steps are, or if maybe you need more help than you think you might need right now, or what we can do to kind of follow up. Get more resources.
And we can do it right now.
So I think that would be a great thing. Let's put this number in your phone, and let's have you text this as as a huge step one, and then we'll go from there to see if maybe you do need more help than you are thinking you do right at this moment, or if there's other resources that we can go another route. But I would really like to see you do this here with me by your side, because
or let's just get some information
to let you know that I'm
we
here
do
with you
need it
through all of it. I think I just made that up. I kind of like that. Make sure.
Yeah.
That's what I would do, Gina. And they'll give us the resources in order to do that right now, or for when we need it later.
And maybe for some people, it's easier to talk to someone that you don't know, because you don't want to. For some people, they don't want to place the burden on someone, because most people, they worry about everyone else and not themselves. So maybe having someone that they don't know would be easier. It's like having an unbiased opinion, but having unbiased help.
Well, exactly. And not even just so much that, not just, and for somebody they don't know also, it's like they have shame or guilt or humiliation about talking about private, innermost, darkest things that are going through their head, obviously at that time, they don't feel comfortable talking because then they're going to think, oh, how's my mom going to look at me after that? How's my daughter going to see me after I tell her this stuff? So yeah, you're right. I would say 99% of the time, it's easier for a lot of people to talk to a third party
to
and
open up
more. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's another thing too. Some people say, well, I tried therapy, but it didn't work. Okay, well, how long did you go and what did you do? Or we didn't vibe. Okay, well, there's so many out there though. I went through the same thing. I had to go through a handful before I connected with somebody. And then, thank you, God, I found somebody who was amazing and helped me through so much. You know, it might take a few tries and it sucks having to start over with somebody again because I've done that too. It really, really sucks, but there's a reason for it. I was fighting it. The 2 times I had to do that, whole life story all over again. And at the end, I was like, okay, God, you knew what you were doing because this ended up being amazing. And I'm so grateful that I have this bond with this person now that I can turn to.
No, yeah, I like that you don't have to think you're just stuck with one doctor. If you go and you do talk to someone for the first time and you're like, well, that didn't help me at all. Like maybe it didn't the first time and maybe still you're a little bit restricting yourself because you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it can feel uncomfortable sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. But like, I like that you said, you know, it can take multiple different doctors before you find someone that's like, this is the one that I feel comfortable, safe with. I can open up about it.
Exactly. And like I don't have her any longer, but I loved mine so much and I had so much respect for her and just so much gratitude that even after the fact, without having to pay for services, I could call her whenever I wanted. I had her number. I had her email. Anytime I needed to reach out to her, I'd have like a praise report to give her about a breakthrough that I had regarding traumatic stuff. And she just like cried on the phone with me, was so happy that I reached out to her, you know? And so that feel good too. Like you have kind of like a confidant for life. You know what I mean?
Again, having someone who cares about people and
exactly communication and compassion.
I was also going to mention, we talked about how not everyone has insurance and things like that. So I also have heard of a service called Better Health, and it's basically where you can pay for a therapist, any state, at any time. They're open 24/7, and they pretty much place you with a therapist. And you can do it texting, you can do it video chat, you can do it phone calls, however you feel comfortable. And it's just another way to have that therapist or mental health check every here and there without having insurance. Yeah.
Do you know how much it is?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it maybe depends on like necessity or need, but I know that but I know that during the pandemic, they brought on a lot more mental health therapists and professionals because of everything going on. So they've hired on more in every state. So
they have
there should be someone available. Yes, in all 50 states.
Amazing. I like that.
According to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, you can also sign up as a volunteer field advocate to learn tools and resources to speak out for suicide prevention, and you can do so on their website. So it is afsp.org. This all will be linked in the description as well, guys. We'll leave it in our Instagram as well under the episode when it releases. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know.
I love that. I really, really love that. And I'd like to just say one more thing. I don't know you guys who are listening, but I love you. And even if you want to reach out to me, if you feel comfortable hearing what I had to say, please get a hold of Emily and Gina, and I would be happy to give you my email, my number, whatever, Instagram. So I can help you. My Instagram, my Facebook, my Instagram, whatever. I would be more than happy to help you because you're not alone and you don't have to be alone.
Love it. Love it. Love it. We love you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully we shed some light. Hopefully you have resources now that you can use and come up with your own type of crisis plan, because it could happen to anyone. You know, just because you're at a good place right now doesn't mean tomorrow, 3 weeks from now, you may not, you may need these resources. So you have us three here. We're here for you guys. If you ever need anything, you know where to find us.
That's right.
Links below.
Thank you for coming on and sharing all your information.
Thank you so much for being our first guest.
For having me. I'm glad I got to shed a little bit of light, hopefully. And it's number 3, or episode number 3, my number. On Wellness Wednesday, the 3rd day of the week.
Oh my gosh. All the energy. Is it a full moon?
I love you both.
I
I love you for what you guys are doing. It's
Please
amazing.
share this episode with anybody who you think may need it, even if they haven't shared, their own struggles. Maybe just hearing and wanting to become an advocate will make them be more open about themselves.
So to end the podcast, this week's affirmation is, just because no one else can heal or do your inner work for you doesn't mean you can, should, or need to do it alone.
Amen.
And we're 3 of us here to be of resources for you guys too. So
That's right.
you have 3 people already on your team and in your corner.
And always remember, you are enough.
Yes. I love that.
And with that, have a beautiful week. Be kind to others.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself.
Strangers. Be kind to anybody.
Yeah.
And with that, have a beautiful week.
Bye.
Bye.